Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about the esoteric path, and I wanted to talk about this for people who are interested in the esoteric path and who might be thinking about that as a path for the new year and for the coming year as it progresses. My channel is actually a lot about the esoteric path. So I wanted to talk about the esoteric path in general and also talk about a few guidelines for people who would like to know more about the esoteric path and would like a few guidelines about what they are likely to encounter along the way and the types of things that I have experienced along the way after many years on the esoteric path. And just to start with, I wanted to refer to the two tarot cards that I think mainly represent the esoteric path. And the first one is the High Priestess. And the High Priestess is actually guarding the path of the esoteric mysteries. And she's sitting in front of and between the two pillars of Kabbalah. And there is a book here that she's holding, which can represent the Akashic records, but I think it particularly represents esoteric knowledge and the books of esoteric knowledge. And she is a rather silent figure. And this archetype is meant to be a silent figure because this is the keeper of the mysteries. So this card particularly represents esoteric knowledge and the mysteries themselves in the way that they are veiled and they are guarded. So the High Priestess, who represents esoteric knowledge itself, and the Hermit. The Hermit represents the actual path. The path of the esoteric knowledge, and he is a guide. And by the way, I'm using he and she here, but it can be either gender. The Hermit is holding a lamp, but the Hermit is a very important guide on the esoteric path. But the Hermit is also a silent type of figure. The Hermit is the way shower and will guide, but is still relatively silent because people who decide to follow the esoteric path, it is a rather solitary path because you need to do your own study and contemplation. And it's like the High Priestess figure. A lot of it is done in silence or solitary. It's a solitary pursuit. It's not something that is a very sociable type of pursuit. So it does suit people who really want and need the time and the space and the quiet contemplation to reflect on the esoteric knowledge as you go along on the path. So these two cards represent the esoteric path, I think, the most and the most completely. So So I've written down quite a number of points here as guidelines, and I hope they're useful to people. So you'll have to bear with me a little bit because I'm reading my handwriting. So the first point I want to make about the guidelines are the sources of esoteric knowledge. Now, the sources of esoteric knowledge are really important because it depends on where the source of this knowledge is actually coming from. So you need to choose the best sources of esoteric knowledge. And that is also what my channel is about. I have got a lot of esoteric books on my playlists, and I have got Thoth books, Tarot and Kabbalah. You know, these are the most esoteric resources that I have put together on my channel for that reason, for people who particularly want to follow the esoteric path. So the sources are really important. Now, what I have always done and still do is I follow the masters who are no longer living. So these are people who are no longer on the earthly plane. And that is because most of the true masters are no longer living. So a lot of the esoteric sources on my channel are the really well-known esoteric masters who are still respected and highly regarded for the extent and quality of their esoteric knowledge. The second point is another quite important one, and that is to do with the cost involved, and by this I mean the financial cost. There is no real need now, especially nowadays, to have a very costly outlay. When I started on the path 25 years ago, it was more expensive then. You had to get access to books. Now, you could do that from a library, and you still can, but I had to purchase quite a number of books. Now, you don't necessarily need to do that on such a large extent, There are not only libraries that are still around, but you can also get more of these books secondhand now. There is also Kindle version, which is a much cheaper access. And some of these books, quite a number of them I have found, and I mean the true esoteric classics, are able to be downloaded for free on the internet as well. I mean, none of this was around when I was starting out on the path. I didn't have any of that. So it's actually easier and cheaper now. It's more practical now than what it was when I first started on the path. So cost really all comes into the point also about access. The access, it's not only availability, but it's access. Now, this is where cost and availability working together, but you know, the access to real or true esoteric knowledge. This access is not something that should cost a lot of money. And what I will do here is I will go further into websites and things like that and give you an idea on which ones to look for and which ones to choose as far as access to true esoteric knowledge is concerned. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is any authors that are still around now. It's really important that you look into the information on the book or their website about how respected, but also it's not the fact that they're known necessarily, how well known they are. That's not necessarily a good guidepost. What you need to do is look for how experienced these authors are in their esoteric field, and people who provide acknowledgement of their backgrounds and the sources of their information. If you are looking at websites from authors or people who are giving the impression that all of this knowledge is completely their own, and they're not fully or acknowledging their sources very much, you need to be wary of those types of authors and those types of people who are promoting their knowledge on their websites, because that's a really important one, because it's a good indicator of, you know, how much these people actually really know and how long they have been actually studying this and actually, you know, how aware these people really are, you know, whether they're actually getting this from their own perceptions or whether they have actually studied and experienced the esoteric knowledge. So this also comes into the next point I want to make about what esotericism actually is. True esoteric knowledge, which is really wisdom, it's not a product. It is not a product that is marketed through a business. That is not what true esoteric knowledge is. So you need to look at motivations behind a website and the founder of the website, or the field of knowledge that they are saying that they are expert in, where you are getting the impression that there is, you know, quite a bit of money required, and there is a certain amount of marketing happening. It's usually not a good indication of true esoteric knowledge. Now, I want to make a little bit of a distinction here between, I'm not saying spirituality, that's a slightly different thing. I'm not saying all metaphysics, I'm saying esoteric knowledge, true esoteric knowledge. Particularly to do with, I'll give you an example of Kabbalah. Now, Kabbalah is not something that is very quickly and easily picked up. So people who are sort of quoting, you know, the Golden Dawn ideas, saying that they know all about those concepts, people who are talking about Eliphas Levi and, you know, the long-held respected masters like that, and they're giving the impression that they know all about, you know, the workings of someone like Eliphas Levi or Crowley. It's very unlikely that they actually do know all that much about what, you know, what they are saying that they know. Because I can tell you, having been on the esoteric path, that it takes at least 10 years minimum to study and to know this area well. So it has to be something where someone has devoted a large amount of time, a large period of their lives. Because I just mentioned 10 years minimum. It's not something that's a hobby. or a side interest. So someone who, and there's a lot of these people around, so if they're kind of, you know, if you know that they actually have a less than 10 years minimum, and they are not quoting their sources properly, and they are giving the impression that this is all their own knowledge, or they are not acknowledging translations of books, and they're actually giving the impression that this is, you know, a lot of this is their work or their knowledge. You really need to look behind that and just see if you can. The only way you can do this too is to compare the actual writings of these esoteric masters, and just compare the standard. The standard of language is usually not the same either. You know, some people who have got, you know, WTF on their products, usually, you know, it's not going to be of the same standard. People who drop F-bombs in regard to this, you know, this is not the type of standard for esoteric guides or esoteric knowledge. So the esoteric path and esotericism, it's something that is found on a path of committed study. So organisations are a good place to start too. Organisations want, you know, they expect consistent application to the path. So looking for websites that are to do with esoteric organisations, or people who have been a member of esoteric organisations, are generally safer and generally more in keeping with what is required and what is needed. They are more, I hate to use the word authentic, but that is the case. This is the real esoteric foundation and the real esoteric knowledge. And I do know this from experience. I have been involved with these organisations, and I have been a member of secret societies. So I do know this. And I also know this from having been on the path for 25 years. I do know this. And I'm here to give you these guidelines to see if they can be of help to you, because I don't like to see a number of people who are potentially being ripped off these days. They are getting a lower standard of knowledge, and they are parting with, you know, amounts of money, believing that they're going to learn more, and a lot of what they are getting for their money isn't all that useful or valuable. It's not going to be all that beneficial to you on the path anyway. And I know that from experience. So yes, esoteric organisations look for people who can actually say how they have come to their knowledge. But if you look for people who have been involved with esoteric organisations, at least they have this organisation affiliation, and they have that behind them, so that if anything is not right or not ethical, you have got an organisation to go to, or report if you want to. If you want to report anything legally or ethically, you have got an organisation behind this person or affiliated with this person. So esoteric societies, secret societies and esoteric societies, they do not advertise for members or followers. But, you know, it's found by word of mouth, but through contact with larger esoteric organisations. So the esoteric organisations are a good place to start first. And there are websites for these people. It's not as if, oh, these people aren't around, how do I find them? The websites are around for the esoteric organisations. They are there. So you can do that with the internet. And they are found, these if you wanted to afterwards, if you want to find actual secret societies that are affiliated with the esoteric organisations, that is usually by word of mouth. But I mean, that's a little bit further down the path, but esoteric organisations are definitely the point to start. And things to look for with esoteric organisations. I'll go on to that now and talk about what things to look for. Look for the history and background of the organisation and the founder. All of this information is mostly and usually on the website. It is there, and look for that. It also gives you an idea of whether you're interested, think you're going to be interested in that organisation as well. So how long the group has been around, how long the organisation has been around, that's an important one. That'll give you a good idea of how much standing this organisation has in the esoteric field or area. Also the background and history of the group founder. The sources of that founder's knowledge. So that's important. And the group founder, if the group founder is a living person, make sure that they are giving credit and acknowledging their sources and influences. So there's no plagiarization going on, because that is happening in academic fields now. So it's certainly happening with esoteric organisations and societies. So especially, as I was saying, plagiarism is fairly common these days, and passing off translations and interpretations as their own, you need to look for that. These are things to keep in mind. Also the founder, where they are still living, of course. Length of time as a practitioner. It was going back to what I've already said. Someone, you need at least 10 years minimum. If you've got someone who's, they say, they may not state on their website, but try to find out if they've, been studying this esoteric area for at least 10 years. And also their experience in the field of esoteric study and qualifications. Now, I know qualifications is a hard one to sort of relate to the esoteric area, but by qualifications, it probably ties in with experience, but it also ties in with their knowledge and with their depth of knowledge, the extent of their knowledge. So I think I've given you most of the points I wanted to make about esoteric organisations and what to look for. So the final kind of point I want to make is one that I get asked quite a bit, and I see it around on the internet quite a lot, which is, why secret, why esoteric, why is it hidden? Because esoteric means hidden knowledge. Well, the real reason, there's two reasons. Many years ago, when these secret societies, esoteric societies were being set up, they had to be secret, and they were secret for a long time because they could be threatened from a religious point of view as being heretics, and they were ridiculed, and ridiculed against the science of the day. I mean, you can understand some of these people were respected people in society, and they held professions in society. So that was the first reason. The second reason is the knowledge itself is beyond the usual comprehension or understanding. It is not generally understood information. So that's another reason why it is secret or hidden knowledge. And it's really this is, you know, the knowledge of the universal laws. So you can see, you know, why this is esoteric knowledge. And the thing that I want to say here about esoteric knowledge as well is that it is, you know, esoteric knowledge is true wisdom. It's actually wisdom. So it starts out as knowledge, esoteric knowledge, and then it becomes wisdom after many, many years of studying and working with the knowledge. It then becomes wisdom. And there is no quick way. There is no easy shortcut. You will particularly see these websites and these people trying to give you this quick shortcut way of gaining this esoteric knowledge and giving you, you know, the key to all of this knowledge and wisdom. And there is no shortcut. There is no easy way. It does take quite a number of years. It's found through a long questioning journey. So that is not a quick fix. That's not found quickly. It just can't, and it can't be given to someone. It can't be given to someone. You need to study this. You need to contemplate this. You need to experience this. This is why it just can't be given. It can't be bought or sold. It can't be. That's a fact. It actually can't be. But there are people with websites and with businesses. They're metaphysical businesses, and they're selling this to people. They're telling people that they can give you these bits of information, small little bits of information, and that it's going to be beneficial and worthwhile, and it's going to be a key into the esoteric mysteries. It won't be. So this really is mysticism. Esoteric knowledge is mysticism, and it needs to be discovered, and it's revealed to the true seekers on the path. So I wanted to make all of these points about the esoteric path for people who are interested in the esoteric path and who might like to begin on the esoteric path. And I hope all of these guidelines are going to be helpful and useful to you. And there are lots of resources on my channel as well for people who are interested in the esoteric path. And I wanted to make these guidelines for you so that you can be informed and more aware of the many metaphysical businesses and authors and these business owners who are trying to give you shortcuts to the esoteric path that are actually not meaningful or useful ultimately for you on the esoteric path. So I hope this has been useful and helpful for you if you are interested in becoming a seeker on the esoteric path. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.